What's up guys, Mike here from Ekim Knives, and I'm back with another video. This time I want to do the review finally after using this disc grinder for a year. This is the Trugrit half horsepower model, variable speed disc grinder. They sell it at Trugrit.com. Now I bought this with my own money, like I said, a year ago. Actually a little more than a year ago. I got this in August of 2016. It's December as I'm filming this, of 2017. So a little bit more than a year. I've definitely used it a lot. And this is one of the tools. I guess before we jump into the actual review, we'll discuss a few uses for these. These are one of those machines that I thought it was a nice to have until I got one and found that I use it all the time. A surprising amount. I really didn't think I would use it as much as I do. Now there are a few things that I don't use. The whole tilting thing, it's nicely made, and I like the design of it. You go from 90 degrees down to 45 degrees, and that's used, I guess, in knife making, for making like dovetail bolsters and stuff like that. I really don't do bolsters, let alone dovetail stuff. I'm sure maybe one day it'll come in handy. I'm sure I can find a use for that. But I got it primarily for flattening material and like kind of cutting some of the hand sanding out of flat work. So the flats on a blade, or let's say titanium, especially a pair of handle scales for a titanium knife, I need a good surface finish and I need it flat. Sure, I could use the surface grinder for that, but the surface grinder isn't a do-it-all kind of thing. This one is actually a little bit more versatile, I think, because you could use it for handle scales as well. I would never put wood on a surface grinder. So build quality, it looks pretty good to me. Now, I've been beating on it for a year. I don't baby my tools. I use it and I need it to work every single day. So I don't baby it and I use and abuse it. And so far, it's all aluminum construction with this heavy anodize on it. I guess this industrial strength or thick anodize. Now, I used to think that anodize came off pretty easily, but it's held up very well, surprisingly. No, of course it'll nick and scratch, but you know, who cares? It's a machine, it's made to get used. As terms of reliability, I've never had a single issue with it. It does come with a Baldor motor, which is one of the better motors out there. Like my grinder over there has a Chinese motor. That one hasn't let me down yet, but this is definitely a better motor. The speed control, it is a, I believe it's is it a Genesis? I think it's a Genesis. Yes. The only thing I don't like about the speed control is it's not NEMA 4X rated. So, like on a grinder, or the one I have for my surface grinder, the NEMA 4X means the NEMA rating is basically how resistant it is to environmental factors. So, is NEMA 1, which is what this is that just dust proof and not waterproof, liquid splash proof, that kind of stuff? I know the 4X even has some circuitry built into it for overload protection and stuff like that. I don't know the extent of NEMA 1X. I would prefer a 4X, but that all comes with a price tag. Speaking of price tags, this one comes in at $815, which is expensive for a disc grinder. You could certainly make one cheaper, but the fact of with what you're getting, I think $815 is a pretty fair price. We'll get into what I think and what I would buy today at the end of the video. Now, like I was saying before, so we've covered quality. The quality is there. It's solidly built. Everything runs true. I don't have any wobble or wiggle or anything like that. Nothing's ever come loose. In terms of the table, it does, like I said, it has the tilt features, so you get the 90 degrees down to 45, and I actually did measure these degrees, and they're marked over here, and I'll cut in a little clip so you can see it, but I measured it and everything is accurate. So you can somewhat rely on those markings over here. In terms of other options, you can take this table off completely and just use it as a disc. So that's what I did. I don't use this thing. I just saved it for the video. I don't even have the screws for it anymore, but I just kind of threw some screws in there last minute. So that brings me to my next point. This one I like because you have a couple of mounting options. Now, naturally, they want you to mount it like this. This is how they built it, in this horizontal fashion. But I'm using it for mostly flattening and straightening and stuff like that of small parts. Now, you can't really put big fixed blades on this. You only have now this is a 9-inch diameter disc. You have from the center of the disc to the outside edge. You don't have the whole disc. And you'll see once you use one, it's going to want to twist out of your hands. So you really have half the disc to work with. Now that means you have 4 inches if you're going to flatten something, or 5 inches, 6 inches tops. If you're going to do bolsters or something like that, you'll have plenty of room. Flattening handle scales, you'll have plenty of room, stuff like that. But don't expect to take a 10-inch chef knife and flatten your flats nice on this. The corners are going to bite in and you're just going to have a bad time. Okay, now speaking of mounting options, and because I use it that way, I take all this stuff off. So I mount it to my bench horizontally, or I guess in this case it would be vertical. Since the shaft is horizontal already, I want the shaft vertical. So this way I can sit in a chair and I can take my piece and press down and get a nice even pressure. So I take the controller off just like that, which is all bolted together, and I mount it on my bench, which you can see here now. Let me put this back together. Now this allows me to do a couple of things, and the big one is disc grinders are only as accurate as the pressure you apply to them, as the pressure you apply to the part. So if you're right hand heavy and you're using 2 hands on a piece to push down and try and sand evenly, that right hand side is going to have more material taken off and you're going to end up grinding a taper into your part. If you're looking for flat and parallel, there is a technique, there is some practice required to not round off the edges, even on a flat disc like this, and keep your part nice and even and parallel. This is the perfect machine for backspacers. If you're a folder maker, I don't need a surface grinder to make folders. I could do it all on a disc if I had to. And that's primarily what I use it for. It's mostly folder parts. Let's get into paper changes. So there's one thing to note with these disc grinders, and that's the fact that they use, now a 9-inch is ideal. And the reason the 9-inch is ideal, because you can get 8 by 11 sheets of paper and sandpaper, and you can just slap it on the disc, and then you cut around it. And I'll show you how I attach new paper to the disc right now. So you put new paper. It's the cheapest way. So you can get it for like $1.25 a sheet, and just throw some spray adhesive on here and put it on the disc, and you're good to go. Now the thing is, sandpaper doesn't last long, especially for what we do with hardened materials like hardened steel and titanium. So your sandpaper lasts about 45 seconds. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you will be changing out paper frequently. And on these machines it is a bit annoying. But there's nothing you can really do about the annoyance of it, but there is something you can do about the cost. So those 12-inch wheel models, although bigger sounds better, is not a great idea, because now you have to buy twice the sandpaper, and those 12-inch pre-adhesive discs are pretty expensive, and that'll add up really quick. I fly through sandpaper on this. Some concerns I have with this one. It is all aluminum construction, and from what I see, most of them are. Now the problem with aluminum is it will gall. It's notorious for galling. So if you do something like drop a 1, 2, 3 block, like I did on mine while it was running, it's going to leave a nice big gouge for you. Same thing if you dig in with the corner of a part, it's easy to rip through the sandpaper, especially if you're using a lubricant, such as if you're using Windex or WD-40. It's softening up that paper, and if you're too rough, you can go right through it and scratch up your disc. Now, I'm pretty aggressive, and mine survived with only a few little battle scars over the year. But there is a positive to that. While I would have loved to seen a steel disc, something a little more resilient, I'm sure that would have increased the cost. Maybe a hardened steel disc. I don't know. I don't know why they don't use it. But the great side to that is they have these discs available for direct replacement for about $85, which is pretty reasonable given how thick and well machined and balanced these are. So for 85 bucks, I can get a replacement, and this one will still have some life in it, so I could send this off to somebody with a big lathe and have them true it up for me. This way you're not facing any downtime. I haven't had the need to do that yet, and hopefully I won't, but this one, even with the few little nicks it has in it, is still keeping my parts nice and flat. The other concern was these are naturally dirty machines, especially if you're using like oil, like WD-40 and you're sanding titanium. It will sling stuff all over the path of the disc. So I put up this plywood here, and I put up, I end up having to wear a shop apron or just put on a sacrificial shirt because you get covered. Like I have a line right across my chest because I sit and work on it, of just the oil and the grease and all the dirt just slinging off of these things. My concern with that, and the reason that's a concern, is because this is only NEMA 1X rated, so I'm not sure how much dirt and dust this can handle, and this is pretty close. They only give you like a 1-foot cord. Okay, now I guess let's talk about recommendations. What I would do if I were to buy one brand new today. So I'll give you some options. So option number one is obviously this guy. This is the half horsepower for $815 from Trugrit. KMG or Beaumont Metalworks, they also make one. Theirs is about $1,000 without the tilting table. So no tilting table, none of that. It has a better VFD, 1 horsepower motor for $1,000, but no tilting table. So if you're just using it for flattening, it's pretty good. But if you want the tilting table, it's another $300 or $400 upgrade. So now you're looking at $1,400 to get into a package like this. The other option, and of course this is like Murphy's Law, I guess, is the day I took delivery of this one, Trugrit updated their website with their brand new 1 horsepower model, 1 horsepower version of this for $100 more than the 815. So it's like $935, I believe it is. So for almost like a little bit more than $100, you're getting double the horsepower in the same package. It's still cheaper than the KMG, and it's going to be just as good, I would imagine, as this one. Now, if you're on a budget, if that $100 means a lot to you in this, can you get away with the half horsepower? Yeah, you definitely can. Now, we're not working with big speed here. It's not speed that we need, it's the torque. Because I run this guy around 20 or 30% power, maybe 40 or 50 if I'm feeling squirrely. But I need the torque. So when I'm bearing down on a piece of titanium and it's getting warm and it's getting gummy and it's trying to grab that disc, if I can still hold on to it and it's not getting ripped out of my hands, it's going to bog down the motor. With this, if I run it at 20% power and really get on it, I could bog it down pretty good. But I'm mindful of it, so I just back off a little bit. Maybe I increase my speed a little bit. A 1 horsepower, obviously you're going to have double the power, so probably double the low-end torque, and you won't have that problem. There's also a 1/3 horsepower motor for a significantly cheaper, or it might be a 1/3 or 1/4, I'm not sure. But honestly, I wouldn't go any lower for what we do in knife making. I wouldn't go any lower than the half. So go half or higher. 2 horse, 3 horse is just overkill in my opinion. So that would do it for me, guys. Like if I had to pick one, I was tempted to put this back in the box and send it to Trugrit, but I already kind of took it out and manhandle it. But it's been reliable. It's worked fine for me. I've spilt acetone on it. I've dropped things on it. I've run it for half the day, just non-stop, making the motor hot. No hiccups, no problems whatsoever. So my recommendation is get the bigger motor for the $100 extra. The KMG one is nice. I've used one in person. LumaBlaze has one. So if you do end up with one of those, you're not going to be sorry. Let me know if there's any other options in the comment section down below. Those are the two I looked at primarily. Variable speed is a must for these disc grinders, guys. You do not want to run these at 100% power unless you're grinding wood or something like that. That's the only time I ever put it at 100% power. Otherwise, like 30-40% for metal, 100% for wood, and it's going to throw stuff everywhere. Okay? And if you don't have one and you can't find a surface grinder, this is your second best option. So that's it for this one, guys. This is Mike here from Ekim Knives. I hope you found this video helpful, and you guys have a great day. I'll catch you on the next video.